Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala Imam al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma arna al-haqqa haqqa wa razaqna tiba'ah wa arna. Okay. Wa arna al-batil batil wa razaqna. Believing brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this for Study Circles. We'll continue by Allah's will with the sealed nectar. The person taking notes, the next chapter that we are about to speak about is the reaction in Mecca. The kuffar came to fight the Muslims at the Battle of Badr, and they came out with an attitude of being vainglory, proud, arrogant, and cocky, and the victory before the war started, because the slave master of Bilal brought with him 20 camels loaded with wine, claiming that after we kill the Muslims, we are going to have a party. But they plot and Allah planned, and Allah Ta'ala is the best of planners. They lost the battle. Now, how many Muslims were killed at this battle? 14 Muslims died at the Battle of Badr. And how many kuffar died? 70 kuffar died, and 70 were taken as captives. If 1,000 kafirs came to fight the Prophet, 70 died, 70 were taken as captives. Where are the others? The answer is clear. They run away from the battlefield. And Allah told you in the Quran that when the war starts and things get difficult, things get hot, things get violent and critical, the kuffar will run away. So in Surah 54 verse 45, Allah made a prediction in the Quran, and we have done a topic in this room called the predictions of. This is one of the predictions of the Quran. Allah said, سَيُهْزَمْ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرُ. The multitude will put from the battlefield, and they will show you their backside. Dubur means backside, according to the sealed nectar. Now, why is it that the kuffar run away from the battlefield at the Battle of Badr? The reason for this is because the Rasul ﷺ instructed his companions to kill the leaders of Mecca. The Prophet told them to take out the think tank. The Rasul ﷺ told the Sahabas to kill the leaders of Mecca. And you are commanded by Allah Ta'ala to kill the leaders of Kufr. So this was the strategy of the Prophet. Take out the think tank. People like Abu Jahl and Utbah, Shayba, Umayyah. All the think tanks who give instructions to the foot soldiers, take out the think tanks, because you were told by Allah to fight the leaders of Kufr. The companions of Muhammad followed the instruction of the Prophet to kill the leaders of Kufr. Take out the think tanks. So when people like Abu Jahl was killed, and Utbah, Shayba, Umayyah, and there was no one left on the battlefield to give out instructions, the kuffar, they panicked and they ran from the battlefield. Like Allah told you in Surah Qamar, Surah 54 verse 45, سَيُهْزَمْ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرُ. Their multitude will be put to flight. They will be defeated and they'll run away, and they will show you their backside. Dubur means backside. This is exactly what took place at the Battle of Badr. They ran for their lives. Kuffar, they always run from the battlefield because the Ummah of Muhammad was blessed with fear, ar-ru'ba. 1 month before you fight the kuffar, they would tremble with fear. So even though they have superior weapons, when they come face to face with the mujahideen, they always run away and show you their backside. Many of them, they run away to other countries to seek political asylum because they don't want to face the mujahideen. Many of them committed suicide. Suicide is rife in the army of the kuffar because they rather commit suicide than to face the mujahideen. This is the reality of war, the reality of jihad. It's a very harsh reality. Many kuffar rather commit suicide than to come face to face with the mujahideen, even though they have superior weapons. So the Rasul said, I was blessed with rub, fear. 1 month before I marched against the kuffar, they would tremble with fear. Now, what was the reaction in Mecca? The next chapter, the reaction in Mecca. The polytheists, having received a large dose of discipline and heavy defeat, fled away in great disorder to the hillocks, heading for Mecca, panicked and too ashamed to face their people. Ibn Ishaq related that the first herald of bad things was Haysaman bin Abdullah. He narrated to them how their nobles, the notables of Quraysh were killed. The think tanks were taken out at the Battle of Badr. People there did not believe him at first and thought that he had gone mad. You are crazy. How can they lose the war? People thought that the messenger who brought the news to Mecca had gone mad. How can they lose such a war? It was 1,000 against 313. How can they lose? The Muslims only had 2 horses. We had 100 horses. How can we lose such a war? Abu Sufyan ibn Harith gave Abu Lahab a full account. This is not the Abu Sufyan that you are thinking about. It's a different Abu Sufyan. The Abu Sufyan that escaped with the caravan is called Abu Sufyan ibn Harb. That's a different Abu Sufyan. He gave Abu Lahab a full account of the massacre and the disgraceful defeat the Quraysh suffered, they sustained. And he emphasized the angels were present at the battlefield. Abu Lahab could not contain himself any longer and gave vent to his feelings of resentment in beating, abusing, and slapping Abu Rafi. Abu Rafi was a Muslim, but he hid his conversion to Islam. Abu Rafi reiterated that the angels were present. Abu Lahab slapped him in the face for reiterating the fact that the angels fought at the Battle of Badr. Fadl, another Muslim, a woman, saw when Abu Muslim brother in the face. She got very upset to see a kafir hitting her Muslim brother in the face. So Fadl picked up a piece of log, in some history books, a piece of iron, and hit Abu Lahab in his head and cracked his skull. He suffered fever immediately after this, and he died 7 days later after Fadl hitting him in his head with the piece of wood, in some history books a piece of iron, the pole of a tent. He died 7 days later. The stench coming from his body was excruciating and unbearable. So for 3 days, no one went near to him to bury him. And people went to his sons and said, aren't you ashamed your father is left unburied? So because they were a rich family and they had slaves, they told their slaves to transport their father outside the home and dump him behind a wall, and then they piled up stones and sand on top of his dead body. This was the end of Abu Lahab, one of the greatest enemies of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The news of the victory was received in Medina. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent his adopted son Zayd ibn Haritha to break the news to Medina that the Muslims won the battle. When the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Zayd ibn Haritha with the news, he sent him on his camel, his she camel, whose name was Qaswa, Al-Qaswa. When the hypocrites of Al-Medina saw Zayd ibn Haritha riding Al-Qaswa, the she camel of the Rasul, they spread a rumor immediately that Muhammad was killed at the Battle of Badr. They surmised, they concluded, why would he be riding the she camel of the Prophet? Where is the Prophet? So the hypocrites, along with the Jews, spread a rumor that Muhammad was killed at the Battle of Badr. So before Zayd ibn Haritha could open his mouth and announce the good news, they start to spread rumors that the Prophet ﷺ was killed. And when the news reached Medina that the Muslims were victorious, the Jews could not believe. They thought the Muslims would have lost because the odds were against them. 1,000 kuffar fighting 313 Muslims. But what the Jews do not know is that Allah Ta'ala sent the angel Gabriel along with 1,000 angels to fight alongside the Muslims. As I told you previously, the Prophet had 70 captives. And he did not know what to do with the captives, and he held a mashura. Umar al-Khattab told him to chop off the heads of the captives, and as for Mus'ab ibn Umair, he should take a sword and chop off the head of Abu Aziz. Abu Aziz was his brother, his blood brother. So a Muslim who is a fighter at Badr should take a sword and chop off the head of his brother who came from Mecca to fight against the Muslims. Brother will chop off the head of brother. This was the opinion of Umar in the Shura meeting. No kafir should live another day to fight the Muslims again. Abu Bakr Siddiq said, set them free but charge them money. And the Prophet accepted the opinion of Abu Bakr, but that was the wrong opinion. The opinion of Umar was the correct opinion, and Allah reveals Surah 8 verse 67, ما كان للنبي أن يكون له أسرى حتى يثخن في الأرض. ما كان للنبي أن يكون له أسرى حتى يثخن في الأرض. Surah 8 verse 67. It is not proper for a prophet to take captives until he create a great slaughter in the land among his enemies. When the ayah came down, the Prophet was crying and Abu Bakr was crying, and Umar saw them and said, what is the matter? And they told Umar an ayah came down to correct them, that the opinion they took was the wrong opinion. Because the captives who were set free, they came back the next year at Uhud to kill Sahabas. Those captives who gave their word that they won't fight Islam again, they came back the following year at the Battle of Uhud to kill Muslims. So the opinion of Umar was the correct opinion. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, if there should be a prophet after me, it would have been Umar ibn al-Khattab. This hadith can be found in the Musnad of Ahmad. if there should be a prophet after me, that prophet would have been Umar ibn al-Khattab. And this hadith can be found in Musnad Ahmad. The kuffar in Mecca were lamenting, they were crying. It is said not a single house was left in Mecca except that somebody in that house was crying, because their relatives were dispatched to the hellfire by the Sahabas at the Battle of Badr. However, they were told not to cry loud so that the ego of the Muslims will be massaged. So even though they were lamenting and crying over their dead, they were told not to cry loud for the Muslims to be happy about their crying, their lamenting, their mourning, so that the ego of the Muslims will not be massaged. So even though they were crying, it was done in secrecy. They said that, let us take revenge against the Muslims. We will send a man to kill Muhammad. So they dispatched a man from Mecca to Medina to kill Muhammad, to take revenge for their loss. Now, it was two men actually, Umair ibn Wahab al-Jumahi, a polytheist and an enemy of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He sat with Safwan ibn Umayyah together, privately lamenting their loss and remembering their dead and their captives. Umair expressed a fervent desire to kill the Prophet and release his captives, his captured son in Medina. So his son was Mus'ab ibn Umair. The name is Umair ibn Wahab al-Jumahi. Umair, not Omar, Umair. He wanted, his pride was hurt when his son was captured, and they were from a rich family. Umair agreed and asked Safwan to be reticent on the whole scheme. He left for Medina, having with him a sword to which he applied some kind of lethal poison, dangerous poison. Umar al-Khattab saw him at the door of the masjid and understood that he had come with evil intention. His motive was evil. He immediately went into the masjid and informed the Prophet that a man is here with an evil intention. He was let in and looped by the sling of his sword, and in greeting he said, "Good morning." To which the Prophet replied that Allah had been gracious and taught them the greeting of the dwellers of paradise. Good morning is not the way to greet. Allah taught us the greeting of paradise, which is Assalamu alaikum. This is how people greet in paradise. And Allah will say Assalamu alaikum to you when you enter the paradise. To a question raised by the Rasul about his object, Umair said that he had come to see that his captured son was well treated. As for the sword which the Prophet asked him about, he cursed it and said that it gained them nothing. On exhorting him to tell his real motive, his real goal, he remained obdurate and did not doubt this meeting with Safwan. Safwan Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. The man who came, can you hear me? The man who came to kill Muhammad, when the Prophet asked him about his motive, he was being evasive. He didn't want to reveal why he left Mecca to come to Medina. He said he came to release his son who was held captive. Who was his son? Abu Aziz, the brother of Mus'ab ibn Umair. He lied. His intention was to kill the Prophet. He poisoned his sword to kill the Prophet. When the Prophet realized that the man was being evasive and he didn't want to answer questions properly, the Prophet told him why he came to Medina. He came to kill the Prophet. When he realized the Prophet knew what was in his heart, he testified that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. He took Shahada. This was the second man who came to kill the Prophet and took Shahada. Omar in Mecca came to kill the Prophet and took Shahada. And here you have Umair, he did the same thing. Safwan, his friend, meanwhile, was still entertaining false illusions as to the approaching redemption of honor and burying the memory of Badr into oblivion. He was impatiently awaiting Umair's news, but to his great surprise, he was. I told you when the Prophet ﷺ went into Medina, he found 3 Jewish tribes: BANU QAINUQA, BANU Nadir, and BANU Qurayza. And the Rasul ﷺ signed peace treaties with all 3 Jewish tribes. It is called a covenant of security. Covenant of security means you won't kill us and we won't kill you. We won't attack you, you won't attack us. Covenant of security means we won't spread rumors against you, propaganda warfare, and you won't spread propaganda warfare against us. Covenant of security means I won't impose on you embargo and you won't impose on me embargo. I won't slander your name, you won't slander my name. I won't kill you, you won't kill me. That is called a covenant of security. I won't disgrace you, you won't disgrace me. I will not wage against you economic warfare, propaganda warfare, military warfare, and you will not wage against me propaganda warfare by slandering my name, economic warfare with embargo, or military warfare on the battlefield. This is called a covenant of security. The covenant of security was signed by the Rasul ﷺ because he was the Amir, the leader of Medina, the leader of the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ. He signed the covenant of security with the Jews of Medina. If Medina should be attacked, you will help the Muslims to repel the aggressors. The most arrogant of the Jewish tribes was BANU QAINUQA. And they always plot and plan against the Muslims. Shas bin Qais, an elderly Jew from BANU QAINUQA, a kafir, a disbeliever, very envious of the Muslims. He passed by 2 Muslims from Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj. He perceived a prevalent spirit of reconciliation, an atmosphere of rapport, friendship, and Islamic brotherhood. And he didn't like what he saw. Before Muhammad came to Medina, these 2 tribes used to kill each other in a war of attrition. Now they are friends, bosom friends. The Jew didn't like it. BANU QAINUQA, they earned their living by making weapons and household items. And they were in the field of blacksmith and goldsmith. How did they earn their living? By making weapons and selling the weapons. So if there is no war between Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, it's bad business for the Jews. So, like the hypocrites, they always sow the seeds. What seeds? The seeds of discord, fitna. Sowing the seeds of fitna. So this Jew, when he saw the 2 Muslims who used to be enemies were speaking in a friendly manner, he sent another Jew, to go and sit among them and remind them about the wars that they used to have between themselves. Remind them about how they used to kill each other in a war of attrition. Remind them about the pre-Islamic days of ignorance, which is called Jahiliyyah. Remind them about the poetry they used to make up and criticize each other. They used to use poetry to slander each other. the Aus and the Khazraj. So the Jew reminded them about how they used to use poetry before Muhammad came to Medina. They used to use poetry to slander each other, and they used to fight each other in a war of attrition. These two Sahabas, they remembered what took place in Jahiliyyah, and they became angry. The Jew used one against the other, and the two Muslims became angry, and they were on the verge of drawing their swords to fight and kill each other. The Holy Prophet found out about what was happening, and the Prophet rushed to the scene. And the Prophet said, "Are you going to go back to Jahiliyyah even though I am still in your midst?" This was a question the Rasul asked him. Are you going to go back to Jahiliyyah even though I am in your midst? Are you going to go back to disbelief even though I'm still in your midst? When the two Sahabas found out what the Jew was doing to turn one against the other, divide and rule, divide and conquer, they shook hands, they embraced, they cried, and they went home. It is because of this reason Allah revealed Surah 3, 103, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. This is called Asbab al-Nuzul. Asbab al-Nuzul. It is because these two Sahabas were about to fight and kill each other. Allah revealed Surah 3, 103. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold fast to the rope of Allah and don't be divided amongst yourselves. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. And remember Allah's favor unto you. You were enemies at each other's throat, killing each other in a war of attrition. You were a'da, enemies. And Allah attuned your hearts and put love in your hearts for each other. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ. You became, by the mercy of Allah, إِخْوَانًا, brothers in Islam. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ. And you were on the verge of falling over into the hellfire. Had you died in your war of attrition, you would have fallen over into the hellfire. You would have died as kuffar, and your body and soul would have been condemned to the hellfire to abide forever and ever. Because that war is called Asabiyah. Your war is called Asabiyah. Asabiyah means racism, tribalism, and nationalism. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ فَأَنْقَذَكُم مِّنْهَا. You were on the verge of falling over into the hellfire. And Allah saved you from the hellfire by sending His Prophet Muhammad to Medina to take you away from your Asabiyah, your tribalism, and to stop the tribal war. So if Islam is now in your city, Medina, why then do you want to go back to Jahiliyyah and kill each other in the name of Asabiyah, tribalism? When the Jew failed to make the two Sahabas fight, Al-Aus and Al-Khazraj, when he failed, the Jew was very, very disappointed. It is very, very easy for tribal war to start. In Nigeria, a Christian took his car tire to a Muslim to fix his tire. He had a flat tire. He had a flat tire, and he took his tire to a Muslim to patch the tire. And he was expecting the Muslim to say $1 to patch the tire. But instead he said $2. And the Christian said, "You're a Muslim, you're a thief. All you Muslims are thieves. You're all the same." And a war broke out. One killed one. And because of one tire, one flat tire, many churches were burnt down, and massages were burnt down, and many people were killed. Because of one tire, one car tire. This took place in Nigeria. So when people have Asabiyah in their hearts, all it took is one spark to cause a huge fire, and the fire will burn maybe for a whole month. All it took is one spark. So this Jew, had he succeeded in causing the Aus and the Khazraj to fight, the whole tribe would get involved, and Medina would have erupted in a tribal war. This would have been embarrassing because the Prophet was there. And the Prophet took Islam to Medina. And Islam eradicates tribalism, Asabiyah, the way water eradicates fire, the way the light eradicates the darkness. This would have been very, very embarrassing for a tribal war to take place in Medina while the Prophet was there. So because of that, the Prophet rushed to the scene and asked them, do you want to revert to Kufr? Do you want to revert to Jahiliyyah even though I'm in your midst? And Allah revealed the ayah, Surah 3, 103, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold fast to the rope of Allah and don't be divided amongst yourselves. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Remember Allah's favor unto you. You were Ada, enemies. You were Dushman. What were you? Dushman, Ada. And by me sending my Prophet to Medina, you are no longer Dushman. You are no longer enemies. You are Ikhwan, brothers. That's what you are now. Surah 3, 103. And in another ayah, Surah 8, 63. Allah Ta'ala told Muhammad, if you had spent all the money in the world, Lord, and found the world. Surah 8 verse 63. وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. I, Allah, I put love in their hearts for each other. The Aus and the Khazraj, who were killing each other every day in a war of attrition. And just before Muhammad migrated to the city, a huge war took place between the Aus and the Khazraj, and both leaders were taken out in the war. Both leaders died in the war just before Muhammad migrated to the city. And when he went there, he brought love to the city. He brought Islam, and the war stopped. Allah spoke about it in Surah 8 verse 63. What did Allah say? وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. And I, Allah, I put love in their hearts for each other. لَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If you, Muhammad, had spent all the money in the world, مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ, you could never put love in their hearts for each other. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُمْ. But it was I, Allah, who put love in their hearts for each other. إِنَّهُ عَزِيزٌ Hakim. Allah Ta'ala is the Almighty, the All-Wise. This ayah is telling you, Surah 8, verse 63, money can't buy true love. Many rich men spend lavishly on young girls, girls who are half their age. He is 50, she is 25, and she has a lover on the side. So she has a minister of romance and a minister of finance. Her husband, who is 50 or 60 and he's rich, he is called the minister of finance. Her lover, who is her age, 25 like her, he is called the minister of romance. So she has two ministers, the minister of finance, the minister of romance. That is Jahiliyyah. Since you don't know what is Jahiliyyah, I tell you what is Jahiliyyah. You are so innocent, you don't know what is Jahiliyyah. So I will tell you what is Jahiliyyah. Kuffar women, they have two ministers. Minister of romance, minister of finance. They have a lover on the side. Why? Because money can't buy true love. Allah told you in the Quran, money can't buy true love. And if you, Muhammad, had spent all the money in the world for the Aus and the Khazraj to love each other and stop killing each other, you could never put love in their hearts for each other. Only I, Allah, could put love in their hearts for each other, because I am what? Al-Aziz Al-Hakim, the Almighty, the All-Wise. So this was one of the plots of BANU QAINUQA. Another plot of BANU QAINUQA is when Muslim women go to their marketplace, they used to hit on them. Hit on them means to make indecent proposals to them. The Jews like to hit on Muslim women. Even in Palestine, they do the same. If you go on YouTube and Google, not Google, go to YouTube and type in Jews hitting on Muslim girls, you'll see the video comes up. Jews hitting on Muslim girls. To hit on Muslim girl is to hit on a woman means to make indecent proposal. When the Muslims went to the bazaars, the marketplace of BANU QAINUQA, they used to hit on Muslim girls. One day, a Muslim woman went to their bazaar to buy something, and they pinned her dress to the stall, and when she walked off, she became naked. And the Jews were laughing. A Muslim was in the market, and he chopped off the head of the Jew who did it, because he was not bikhairat. Bikhairat means you have no jealousy, you are a dayyuth, the Jannah. So the Sahabas were not bikhairat. So he chopped off the head of the Jew who made the Muslim woman naked in the marketplace. Then the Jews ganged up against the Muslim, like they do. Jews are cowards. They ganged up against the one Muslim and they killed him. The Prophet said, because you disgrace a Muslim woman in the marketplace and you Muslim who came to your covenant of security, so you are no longer welcome to stay in Medina. This was BANU QAINUQA. On Saturday, Shawwal, the 15th of Shawwal, 2 years after Hijrah, the Prophet marched out with his soldiers, Hamza, his uncle, carrying the standard of the Muslims. Now, BANU QAINUQA, okay, shukran for finding the link. Jews hitting on Muslim girls. Jews like to corrupt Muslim girls. Hindus and Sikhs as well. BANU QAINUQA, their army was 700. Their fighting force was 700. The Muslims, they were only 313 at Badr. So they outnumbered the Muslims 2-1. Yet the Prophet marched against BANU QAINUQA, and Hamza was carrying the flag for the Muslims, and they were put on the siege in their fortresses for 15 days until the hypocrite Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn came forward to broker a peace deal, claiming BANU QAINUQA they were my allies in Jahiliyyah, so I will negotiate and broker a peace deal. The Rasul allowed him to broker the peace deal. So they were supposed to be killed. BANU QAINUQA, they were supposed to be killed for uncovering the private parts of a Muslim woman publicly in the marketplace. Because this Mu'tasim did wrote a letter to the king of Rome and said, this letter is from Mu'tasim, Amir al-Mu'mineen, to the dog of Rome. He called him the dog of Rome. So if you uncover the nakedness of a Muslim woman, you are supposed to be killed as a kafir. But the hypocrite Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, he said, let me broker the deal between the Jews and the Muslims, because I was their ally in Jahiliyyah. And he said they should be leave Medina. The Prophet accepted the verdict, and they left Medina, and they were able to carry one camel and what can be put on the back of one camel. As for their houses, the Prophet gave their homes to Ashab al-Sufa, the Sahabas who used to live in the masjid because they were homeless. The Sahabas who used to live in the masjid, people like Abu Huraira, who used to live in the homes of the Jews, to these Sahabas who were staying in the masjid. Why they were expelled from Medina? They were expelled because they broke their covenant of security. There are some people in our midst today, people like Hizb ut-Tahrir and Al-Muhajirun, who claim that even though the Kuffar are raping women in Iraq, occupied Palestine, in Shishan, we have a covenant of security with these bloodthirsty Jews and Christians who are killing and raping Muslim women. this is the Aqidah of Al-Muhajirun and Hizb Tahrir. I heard that a man by the name of Abu Basir is preaching that in the UK as well. Anybody who believes in the covenant of security, this person is a munafiq and you are not allowed to take your deen from him, because when you study the sealed, this is why it is this seerah that we are going through right now meticulously. It's not, I'm not telling you a bedtime story. I know it is bedtime in the UK and in Germany. Some of you are from the UK, some of you are from Germany. I can see you in the room. I know you personally, I know your nicks. I know it is your bedtime. But these stories that I'm telling you about, it's not bedtime story. Oh, I went to the halqa of Sheikh Faisal in Paltalk and I heard about BANU QAINUQA and their treachery. And you went to bed happily because the Prophet kicked them out of Medina because they broke their covenant of security. The purpose of studying the sealed nectar is for you to learn your deen properly. To know that there are people who security, covenant of security, these people are munafiqeen. They're hypocrites. How can you have a covenant of security with the bloodthirsty crusaders and Zionists who are killing Muslims every day? And what, if you need me to tell you that there is no such thing as a covenant of security, that means you don't understand the deen properly. You need to revise yourself. Maybe you're a munafiq as well. If you used to believe that the covenant of security exists, maybe you're a munafiq as well. You need to check out yourself properly. This story I told you about BANU QAINUQA proves that there is no covenant of security with the bloodthirsty kuffar killing Muslims in Chechnya, in occupied Palestine, in occupied Kashmir. Only a munafiq and a low-life scum of the earth believes that that covenant exists. Sheikh Hamoud ibn Uqla, one of the ulama of Najd, refuted your rubbish aqidah of covenant of security and flush it down the drain with Quran and Sunnah. Bring me the fatwa of Sheikh Hamoud ibn Uqla, one of the sincere scholars of Najd. He has passed away. Rahmahullah. He has refuted your rubbish aqidah of a low-life scum of the earth, and the hypocrite preaches the covenant of security. The kuffar broke their covenant with the ummah 1,000,000 times. All it took for BANU QAINUQA to break their covenant of security was to expose the private parts of a Muslim woman in their marketplace. The kuffar, they broke their covenant of security 1,000,000 times. Not just one time like BANU QAINUQA. A covenant of security. Can't you see you're a munafiq? You're a hypocrite and a waste of space. If you believe in the covenant of security, you are nothing but a hypocrite and a waste of space. And you need to go and study the sealed nectar and learn your deen, because you are a jahil. You are pathetic, you are jahil. Go and read the sealed nectar and learn your deen. You are just like a Christian, jahil, who doesn't know anything about his religion. You who believe in the covenant of security, go and read the sealed nectar and learn your deen, because you're pathetic, you're a jahil. You're suffering from animal stupidity, pathetic insanity, and chronic hypocrisy. Those of you who believe in the covenant of security, you are suffering from animal stupidity, pathetic insanity, and chronic hypocrisy. Your situation is pitiful, appalling, and pathetic. We are not finished with the Jews. We are going to continue to explain their treachery against the Ummah of Muhammad. Another Jew who was an enemy of the Muslims, Ka'b ibn Ashraf. Ka'b ibn Ashraf Al-Aqd, Al-Aman, Covenant of Security. Okay, shukran. You need to read this from the unjustmedia.com. This is the website of the Mujahideen, and you are only allowed to take your deen from the Mujahideen. You are not allowed to take your deen from those who badmouth the Mujahideen. I repeat, you are only allowed to take your deen from the Mujahideen. Why do you think we take our deen from Ibn Kathir and Ibn Taymiyyah? Ibn Taymiyyah did jihad against the Tatars. You are only allowed to take your deen from people like Ibn Kathir and Ibn Taymiyyah who did jihad against the Tatars. You are not allowed to take your deen from those who are not Mujahideen. Take for example Salih Al-Fawzan, who said the greatest jihad is to kill the Mujahideen. You can't take your deen from Salih Al-Fawzan. That is a wicked scholar. Who told you they are scholars anyway? Allah called them donkeys and dogs in the Quran. You call them scholars because your iman is weak and you have no al-wala wal-bara. You're swimming in hypocrisy to your neck. You not. Allah said they are donkeys and dogs. And He said that they. And Mike can hear me? Okay. The Prophet said the greatest fitna, my biggest fear for my ummah is misguided scholars. I think this hadith can be found in Bayhaqi. Al-A'imma al-Muddilun. The greatest, I think he was the Sahaba who narrated the hadith. Or Abu Musa al-Ashari, one of the two. He was surprised. What can be greater than the Dajjal? What can be greater than the Dajjal? Because the Prophet mentioned the Dajjal. Yes, Abu Dhar al-Ghifar. Which fitna can be greater than the fitna of the Dajjal? The Prophet said there is a fitna greater than the fitna of the Dajjal, wicked scholars, misguided scholars. People like Salih Al-Fawzan, who said the greatest jihad is to kill the Mujahideen. A'udhu billah. The reason why he said it is because he's panicking. The Mujahideen are gaining momentum in Yemen, and they pass a fatwa that when they finish with Yemen, they are coming for the House of Saud. Did you know that the fatwa has been passed? When we finish with Yemen, we are coming for you, the House of Saud. So the palace scholars, they panicked, and then they quickly passed a fatwa and said the greatest jihad is to kill the Mujahideen. Because the Mujahideen said when we are finished getting rid of the Taghut in Yemen, we are coming for the House of Saud. So the palace scholars, they panicked and passed a fatwa to cement the throne of the apostate regime. Wicked scholars. That was the greatest fitna, the Prophet said. Worse than the fitna of the Dajjal. I'm not finished talking about the Jews. According to the British newspapers, Sheikh Faisal is anti-Semitic. All the newspapers in the UK said Sheikh Faisal is anti-Semitic. And Jews and Arabs are from a race called the Semite race. Jews are anti-Semitic because Jews hate Arabs, and Arabs, they are the real Semites. Did you hear what I just said? Jews are anti-Semitic because they hate Arabs, and the Arabs, they are the real Semites. The race of Ismail, Ibrahim and Ismail. Ka'b ibn Ashraf was very handsome. He was from the tribe of BANU Nadir, not BANU QAINUQA, BANU Nadir, a different tribe. And he hated the Prophet. He was handsome and rich, and he lived in a fortress. And he was a poet. And he used to make poetry criticizing the Muslims and criticizing the Prophet. He went to Mecca, and Abu Sufyan, this was after the Battle of Badr. Abu Sufyan approached him and said, "You're a Jew and you are learned about the scriptures. Tell me, give me your honest opinion. Which religion is better? The paganism that we are practicing in Mecca, or the Islam that Muhammad?" And Abu Sufyan was sincere in asking Ka'b ibn Ashraf the question. Abu Sufyan was sincere. Because the Prophet was married to Abu Sufyan's daughter. Abu Sufyan was his father-in-law. Don't forget, when Abu Sufyan went to Rome and the king of Rome asked him about Muhammad, he spoke the truth. He didn't lie, not even once. They said to him, "Abu Sufyan, why did you speak the truth about Muhammad?" He said, "I spoke the truth about Muhammad because I don't want to be remembered in history as a liar." Subhanallah. Look how the Arabs care about their honor. Arabs, they care about what people think about them, their honor. You think an Arab woman would sleep with a man and then sell the story to the newspapers? That's what white women do in Europe and America. The woman who had an affair with John F. Kennedy, she wrote a book and made a killing out of it, millions of dollars. The woman who had an affair with John Major, the British Prime Minister, Edwina Curry, she wrote a book and made millions of dollars. You think an Arab woman will do something like that? The Arabs care about honor. Europeans, they said, to hell with honor. Who needs honor when I can have millions of dollars in the bank? Who needs honor? I can't take honor to the supermarket. Ka'b ibn Ashraf went to Mecca. He being a Jew and had knowledge of the scriptures, Abu Sufyan approached him and said, which religion is better? The paganism that we are practicing in Mecca, or the Islam that Muhammad and his companions are practicing in Medina? Do you know what Ka'b ibn Ashraf said? A'udhu Billah. It will make you want to vomit when you hear what he said. All of you would want to vomit when you hear what he said. Ka'b ibn Ashraf told Abu Sufyan, the paganism that you are practicing in Mecca is better than the Islam that Muhammad is practicing in Medina. A'udhu Billah. Allah Ta'ala was angry with the answer of Ka'b ibn Ashraf. So Allah revealed Surah 4 verse 51. Surah 4 verse 51. Alam tara alladhina utu nasiban min al-kitab yu'minuna bil-jabti wat-taghut wa yaqulun lilladhina kafaru ha'ulai ahda min alladhina amanu sabila. Surah 4 verse 51. Allah was appalled by his answer. Have you not seen those who were given a portion of the scripture? They believe in Jibt and Taghut, which is black magic and Taghut. And they say to the kuffar, the disbelievers, that they are better guided as regards to the way than the believers. Your religion is better than the religion of the believers. Your paganism in Mecca is better than the Islam that the Muslims are practicing in Medina. This was the answer of Ka'b ibn Ashraf, an enemy of Allah. Now, when did the Prophet move against him? He was from the tribe of Banu Nadir, not Banu QAINUQA. Banu Nadir are not a Jewish tribe. Whatever tribe the Jew is from, it makes no difference. They all hate you the same. Whatever party comes into Israel, whether it's the Labour Party or the Likud Party, they're going to kill you the same. Their hearts are alike. Tashabat qulubuhum. He made poetry against the Prophet. You know when he touched a nerve with the Prophet? When did he push the wrong button? Ka'b ibn Ashraf. What did he say in his poetry that caused the Prophet to move against him? What did he say? How did he push the wrong button? He put in his poetry, I am so handsome. All the Muslim girls in Medina have a crush on me. When he put that in his poetry, then he pushed the wrong button. He started to disgrace Muslim women. Look at me, I am so handsome. All the Muslim girls in Medina have a crush on me. When he put that in his poetry, the Prophet became very upset and said, Man li bi Ka'b ibn Ashraf. Man li bi Ka'b ibn Ashraf. Who can take care of Ka'b ibn Ashraf on my behalf? Innahu adhallahu rasulahu. Indeed, he has harmed Allah and his Rasul. At this stage, the situation became unbearable and could no longer be put up with when he started to mention Muslim girls in his poetry. The Prophet and his companions were not like the Muslims of today. They see Muslim girls being abused and they turn a blind eye because they have become bikhairat. Muslim women are in prison and they don't try to rescue them. Bikhairat. The Prophet and his companions were not bikhairat. They used a man with no jealousy. So when he started to speak about Muslim girls, that they all have a crush on him, all the girls of Medina, the Rasul said, Man li bi Ka'b ibn Ashraf. Innahu adhallahu rasulahu. Who can sort out Ka'b ibn Ashraf? Who can take care of Ka'b ibn Ashraf on my behalf? Indeed, he has harmed Allah and his Rasul. At this stage, the situation became unbearable and could no longer be tolerated. The Prophet gathered his men and said, "Who will kill Ka'b ibn Ashraf?" He had maligned Allah and His Messenger. Thereupon, Muhammad ibn Maslama, Abbad ibn Bishr, and they were from Al-Aus tribe. Muhammad ibn Maslama said, "O Messenger of Allah, do you wish that I should kill him?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Permit me to talk to him in the way I deem fit. For me to kill him, I have to talk against you, Muhammad. You, the Messenger of Allah." Can admin AT21 find out what tribe Muhammad ibn Maslama was from? I think it's Al-Aus tribe. I think it's the Aus tribe. Because they took pride in killing Ka'b ibn Ashraf. This tribe. It was we who killed Ka'b ibn Ashraf. The whole tribe took pride in it. The Prophet said, "Say anything you want to say about me." So Muhammad ibn Maslama, he went to Ka'b ibn Ashraf and spoke bad about the Prophet. And Ka'b ibn Ashraf joined in the conversation and started to speak bad about the Prophet. Then they won the trust of Ka'b ibn Ashraf. Because they spoke bad about the Prophet, they won his trust. They went back another day. Ka'b ibn Ashraf came down out of his fortress. The companion of Muhammad ibn Maslama said to Ka'b ibn Ashraf, "You smell very sweet, your perfume is sweet." He said, "Yes, I have a mistress." Listen to how this man was proud and arrogant. When they said to him, "Your perfume that you are wearing is very sweet," he said, "Yes, because I have a mistress inside, who is the most scented of the women of Arabia." Abu Na'ila again said, "Allow me to smell the scent on your head. Let me smell your perfume on your head." He said, "Yes, you may smell it." So he caught it and smelled it. Then he said, "Allow me to smell it a second time." He then held his head. When he put his head forward for him to smell the perfume, they grabbed his head and said to his companions, "Do your job, kill him, kill him." So they cut off his head from his body. One of them grabbed his head and the other one severed his head from his body. One of them, Harith ibn Aus, was wounded by mistake. When they chopped off the head of Ka'b ibn Ashraf, they shouted, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar," because they killed the enemy of Allah and His Rasul. The Prophet heard them screaming, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." And the Prophet realized that the mission was accomplished. They killed the enemy of Allah and His Rasul. And they saw him, and he said, "Cheerful faces are yours." In reply, they said, "And yours, O Messenger of Allah, your face shall be cheerful." What did they do? They handed of Ka'b ibn Ashraf. They brought his head on a silver platter to the Prophet. So to emphasize the fact that they chopped off the head of Ka'b ibn Ashraf, they brought his head to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahabas, when they do a thing, they bring the hujjah, the evidence, just in case you have an element of doubt that the mission has been accomplished. This is the head of Ka'b ibn Ashraf, the Jew who went to Mecca and told Abu Sufyan the paganism of Mecca is better than the Islam of Medina. The Jew who wrote poetry criticizing and slandering the Prophet. The Jew who wrote a poem and claimed that all the Muslim girls of Medina, he is so handsome, all the Muslim girls of Medina have a crush on him. This was the end of Ka'b ibn Ashraf. And when you slander the Prophet, you slander Allah, His Rasul, and the Muslims, you have broken your covenant of security. The Rasul sent Zayd ibn Haritha to lead a campaign, the invasion of Buhran. This was the most successful campaign prior to the Battle of Uhud. It took place 3 years after the Hijrah. Summer approached, and it was high time for the Meccan trade caravans to leave for Syria. The people of Quraysh, whose lives depended mainly on merchandise, their economy was based on trading merchandise, consisting of summer caravans. So the caravans set out in summer to Syria, and then they go to Yemen in the winter. And Allah spoke about it, لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. By the tradition of the Quraysh, they set out with their caravans to Syria in the summer and to Yemen in the winter. Saif is summer and Shita is winter. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ الَّذِي أَطْعَمَهُم مِّن جُوعٍ وَآمَنَهُم مِّن خَوْفٍ. Let them worship the Lord of this house, who saved them from hunger and fear. You Quraysh, I Allah, I gave you wealth. Why don't you worship me? This is what Allah is saying in Surah لِإِلَافِ Quraysh, Surah Quraysh. The Rasul found out that a caravan was coming, heading for Syria. They would have to follow in order to avoid the back-breaking military strikes that the Muslims successfully inflicted on the polytheists. They were looking for another route for their caravans. The Prophet sent his adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, to intercept the caravan. Many of you think that stealing is haram. Stealing becomes halal sometimes. You can steal from a kafir who kills Muslims. Stealing is only haram when you steal from a kafir who is sympathetic to Muslims. You're allowed to steal from kuffar who kill Muslims. Because when you steal their wealth, they don't have any wealth to buy weapons to kill Muslims. This is why you need to study the seal Nectar. Stealing is halal sometimes. From who? From the kuffar who kill Muslims. The Prophet sent his adopted son Zayd ibn Haritha to intercept the caravan of Quraysh. They held a meeting to discuss the chances of escaping the economic blockade and decided to go along a trade route across Najd to Iraq. Furat ibn Hayyan was appointed as a guide for the caravan. Safwan bin Umayyah led the caravan along the new route. News of the meeting leaked out through Na'im ibn Mas'ud under the influence of alcohol. So how did the Prophet find out that a caravan was coming? A kafir spoke out about it. It was a secret. How did the kafir speak out? Because he was under the influence of alcohol. In the UK, anytime a bank is robbed or somebody is killed, the cops, the undercover cops, go to a pub to listen. You know why? When people drink alcohol, they say everything. Don't you know when people drink alcohol, they can't keep a secret? In the UK, when a bank is robbed, a heist took place, a man is killed. Undercover cops go to the pubs to listen to conversation, to eavesdrop. Because when a man drinks alcohol, he confesses everything. The news leaked out that a caravan was coming of Quraysh because Na'im ibn Mas'ud leaked the news under the influence of alcohol, and it flew fast to Medina. It entered into Medina like wildfire, the news. The Prophet ﷺ immediately mustered 100 horsemen under the leadership of his adopted son Zayd ibn Haritha to seize the caravan. And he dispatched them to intercept and capture the caravan. They caught up with the camels at a place called Qarda. They took the polytheists by surprise and arrested their guide and 2 other men. Safwan and his guards fled away without showing any resistance. The caravan was carrying silver and wares whose value amounted to 100,000 dirham. The booty was distributed among the Muslim warriors after 1/5 had been set aside for the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Furat ibn Hayyan embraced Islam out of his own sweet free will. So the Rasul sent his companions to seize the caravans of Quraysh as a compensation for the kuffar stealing the wealth of the Muslims when they were migrating from Mecca to Medina. So who told you stealing is always haram? Stealing becomes halal when you steal from kuffar who kill Muslims. Because when you steal their wealth, they don't have any wealth to buy weapons to kill Muslims. And who told you that lying is always haram? You can lie to save a marriage. You can lie for two Muslims to make up and stop hating each other. And you can lie on the battlefield because war is deception. And because war is deception, Muhammad ibn Maslama used deception to kill Ka'b ibn Ashraf. The Rasul sent his adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, to intercept the caravan, which was worth 100,000 dirham, because the Rasul said, my livelihood was placed underneath the blade of my sword. وَجُعِلَ رِزْقِي تَحْتَ ذِي الرُّمْحِ. My livelihood, my sustenance is placed underneath the blade of my sword. Inshallah ta'ala, I'll stop here and take 5 questions in regards to the sealed nectar that you have just heard. You can take the wealth of those who speak ill of Muslims. They don't have to kill Muslims, just to speak ill. Ka'b ibn Ashraf did not kill Muslims, he only speak ill. Once you speak ill of Muslims or you kill Muslims, your wealth is no longer sacred. You can steal from these kuffar. This is called Dar al-Harb activities. Now when the Rasul sent his adopted son to seize the caravan of Quraysh, this is called Dar al-Harb activities, because the caravan belonged to Mecca and Mecca was Dar al-Harb. The wealth of Dar al-Harb belongs to the Muslims. Once you are Dar al-Harb, your wealth belongs to the Muslims. So because of that, the Rasul sent his adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, to seize the caravan of Quraysh, because the caravan belonged to Dar al-Harb. If they are successful with their trading, they will use the money, the wealth, to fight Islam. So this is called Dar al-Harb activities. So do not apologize to the kuffar about the Dar al-Harb activities of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this took place before the Battle of Uhud. Today's topic, the sealed nectar, the assassination of Ka'b ibn Ashraf. Or you can call it the sealed nectar, the treachery of BANU QAINUQA. The treachery of BANU QAINUQA. Or you can call it the assassination of Ka'b ibn Ashraf. The choice is yours. You can call this topic any of the two. I'm giving you a choice. You're allowed to steal from a Shiite, a Brahmi, and a Goofy Sufi. You're allowed to steal from Salih Salafis who badmouth the Mujahideen and call them Khawarij and terrorists, and said the greatest jihad is to kill the Mujahideen. You're allowed to steal from the Madkhalis, the Salih Salafis, the Goofy Sufis, the Shady Shiites, and the Brahmis. All these people, you're allowed to steal from them, because they are fake Muslims, they are low-life scums of the earth, and they are the greatest enemies of Islam and the Ummah. Okay, we are the 5 questions that I'm asking for. Okay, sure, can I find the question? Sheikh, while refuting the Brahmis, they said a hadith Malik Ad-Dar, that is treasure of Omar anhu, relates the people were gripped by famine. During the tenure of Omar ibn al-Khattab, when a man walked up to the grave of the Prophet and said, O Messenger of Allah, ask for rain from Allah for your Ummah who is in dire straits. And then he saw the Prophet in a dream. The Prophet said to him, go over to Omar, give him my regards and tell him that the rain will come to you, and tell Omar. And these are fabricated hadiths made up by the Brahmins to support grave worshipping. These are fabricated hadiths fabricated by the Brahmins to support grave worshipping. Now, where is the takhrij for the hadith? You didn't bring takhrij. Takhrij means the volume and the page for what you are saying. No takhrij. When Omar suffered famine, he asked Abbas to pray for rain. He didn't go to the Prophet and said, O Muhammad, pray for rain. Omar said, when Muhammad was alive and we suffered drought, we would ask the Prophet to pray for rain and Allah would send the rain. Now that Muhammad is dead, we'll ask the uncle of the Prophet to pray for rain. And Abbas prayed and the rain came. But to approach the grave of the Prophet to pray for rain, Omar did not do this. This is a lie of the Brahmins. Also, you're not allowed to take your deen from Brahmins. So the person who asks this question, please be reminded, you're not allowed to take your deen from Brahmins or Shiites because they are not Muslims, and you're only allowed to take your deen from Muslims. And even the Muslim you take your deen from, it has to be a person who supports the jihad effort. It is haram to take your deen from people who badmouth the Mujahideen. Okay, narrated Anas, whenever drought threatened them, Umar ibn al-Khattab used to ask al-Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib to invoke Allah for rain. He used to say, "O Allah, we used to ask our Prophet to invoke you for rain, and you would bless us with rain, and now we ask his uncle to invoke you for rain. O Allah, bless us with rain," and so it would rain. So this hadith is what you are supposed to use to refute the Brahmins. When Omar suffered drought, he would ask a person who was alive, Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, to pray for rain. Omar did not go to the grave of the Prophet and said, "O Muhammad, pray for rain," because this would have been shirk, paganism. We are not grave worshippers because we say, "Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een." We recite it from the heart, not from the lips. We believe in what we recite. "Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een." You alone we worship and you alone we ask for help. And because of that, we are not grave worshippers. We are not Muslims by culture, we are Muslims by conviction. Where are the other 4 questions? Brahmins are pagans outside the fold of Islam. That is, if a Muslim consciously or unconsciously commits sins, major and minor kufr and shirk, throughout their lifetime, and a person makes sincere tawbah to Allah after salah, then will Allah forgive those types of kufr and shirk during their lifetime. According to Surah 39 verse 53, Allah will forgive all sins, even shirk, as long as you seek tawbah during your lifetime. The only time Allah will not accept your tawbah is if you die in a state of shirk like Abu Talib. Then there is no hope for you. You will be in hellfire forever. But if you make tawbah from kufr and shirk before you die, Allah will accept your tawbah if your tawbah was sincere. Because as long as there is life, there is hope. As long as there is life, there is hope for you to make tawbah. Bring me the ayah, Surah 39 verse 53. قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. Say, "O my servants who have wronged themselves by committing all types of shirk and haram things, don't despair from the mercy of Allah. No one despairs except despair not from the mercy of Allah. Verily, Allah forgives all sins." So since Allah forgives all sins, even shirk, you are not allowed to despair. Allah will forgive all sins, even shirk, providing you make your tawbah before you die. But if you die in a state of shirk like Abu Talib, I'm afraid there is no hope for you because you die in a state of shirk. And when you die in a state of shirk, it is haram for your relatives to make dua to Allah and ask Allah to forgive you. It is haram for your relatives to make dua and ask Allah to forgive you. Surah Tawbah 113. Would you tell me what was the opinion of the 4 Imams in regards to whether the jizya can be taken only from Ahlul Kitab and Zoroastrians, only if it can be taken from any of the kuffar? Also, can you tell me what opinion you have found to be the closest to Quran and Sunnah? This is a very important question and it is related to the topic. According to Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, you can take jizya from all kuffar, even Hindus and Buddhists. According to Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Imam Shafi, you are only allowed to take jizya from Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, and nobody else. The correct opinion is the Hanbali view. You are only allowed to take jizya from Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, nobody else. This is the opinion of the Hanbalis and the Shafis. This is the correct opinion in regards to jizya. I'm taking 2 more questions. Where are they? Hamas, who are treacherous, are making peace with the state of Israel. What's the ruling on those who fight on the Hamas? Are all of them murtad and traitors to the Muslims of Palestine? Also, is it allowed to ally with Nazis to warn against Zionism, or is this totally haram? You're allowed to ally yourself with anyone who opposes Zionism because of the ayah وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. You're allowed to ally yourself with skinheads to speak out against homosexuality and Darwinism. Skinheads. You're allowed to align yourself with even them to condemn Zionism because skinheads don't like Zionism. Zionism, homosexuality, atheism. You're allowed to align yourself with all these people who speak out against Zionism, homosexuality, atheism. Because the Jews, they are the ones who are promoting all these vices: Zionism, atheism, homosexuality. Umar al-Khattab aligned himself with Christians to conquer Persia. Umar took the help of Christians to conquer Persia. You are allowed to align yourself with anybody who speaks out against homosexuality, atheism, Zionism, Darwinism, because of the ayah وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Cooperate for the spread of birr and taqwa. Don't cooperate for the spread of sins and transgression. The Prophet said, one of the signs of the last days, the Muslims will align themselves with the Christians to fight the Dajjal. One of the signs of the last days, the Muslims will align themselves with the Christians to fight against the Dajjal. All of you should get a copy of the book, The Sealed Nectar, especially those who are taking notes, to be acquainted with the spelling of the names. All of you should get a copy of The Sealed Nectar. You're asking about Hamas. Hamas, they are Democrats. They have dodgy Aqidah. You're asking me about Hamas. Hamas, they are Ikhwani. Democrats, they believe in democracy. They have dodgy Aqidah. I feel sorry for Hamas because they have dodgy Aqidah. It would have been better for them to abandon democracy and believe in jihad and khilafah. As for democracy that Hamas believe in, it is very sad. I don't understand how you can have so many scholars in Palestine and they don't tell you democracy is the greatest shirk. A person who fights for Hamas, if he was jahil and he did not know that democracy is the greatest shirk and he was fighting for the liberation of Palestine, he'll go to paradise if he dies. But if the Hujjah was established and he continues to believe in democracy even after the Hujjah was established, I'm afraid he would have committed suicide because he was no longer jahil anymore and the excuse of ignorance can't be given to him anymore. Could you please clarify for me the description of Ta'if Mansura, who will be with the Mahdi? The word Ta'if Mansura means the Mujahideen, and Firqa Najiyah means the Muslims with the right Aqidah. Firqa Najiyah means the safe sect, it means the Muslims with the right Aqidah. Ta'if Mansura means the Mujahideen. So anytime you see the word Ta'if Mansura, it means the aided and victorious group. It means the Mujahideen, and they are the elite of the Muslims. The most elite Muslim is the Ta'if Mansura. They are frontline material. If you are not frontline material, you are not from the Ta'if Mansura. If you are from the Ta'if Mansura, that means you have now become an elite Muslim. The elite of the elite. because you are Ta'ifa Mansura. Who are they? The Mujahideen, those who are fighting for the sake of La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. If you are fighting for democracy, you are not Ta'ifa Mansura. If you are fighting for racism, tribalism, nationalism, you are not Ta'ifa Mansura. There is a group called Lashkar Tayyiba. They are nationalists fighting for Pakistani nationalism. And they don't fight against Kuffar unless they are occupying Kashmir, occupied Pakistan. But to fight other Kuffar, they are not interested. And they badmouth Mujahideen. The Prophet said, those who fight for La ilaha illallah to be the highest, they are the Mujahideen. So who are the Ta'ifa Mansura? The Mujahideen who are fighting for La ilaha illallah. Jihad, Khilafah, Sharia. What are they fighting for? Jihad, Sharia, Khilafah. That's what is their aim and objective. If that's not your aim and objective, you are not from the Ta'ifa Mansura. If you are fighting for democracy and you die, you commit suicide to be in hellfire forever because democracy is a religion. Whose religion? The religion of Iblis. The religion of the Satan. So be careful of jumping on the bandwagon of a people when they are not fighting for Sharia and Khilafah. Be careful. Maybe you are going to commit suicide. You are only allowed to jump on a bandwagon if they are fighting for Khilafah and Sharia. Don't be a wagonist who jump on every bandwagon he sees without analyzing what is their aim, what is their objective. Abdul Azam, have you heard about Abdul Azam? When he was in Palestine and the people were fighting, he said to them, is there a religion behind your struggle? They said, no, 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 no. There is no religion behind our struggle. We are fighting in the name of Arab nationalism. Abdul Azam said, I made bara from you, and he went to Afghanistan to fight against the Soviet Union. Why he left and went to Afghanistan to fight against the Soviet Union? Because they told him there is no religion behind our struggle. We are fighting for Arab nationalism. There is no religion behind our struggle. Abdul Azam was shocked. He was taken aback. He was startled with the hypocrisy that he saw. So he left Palestine and he went to Afghanistan to fight jihad against the Soviet Union. The people who call themselves Ikhwan Muslimin, they believe in democracy. So they should stop calling themselves Ikhwan Muslimin and call themselves Ikhwan Shayateen. Why? Because they believe in democracy. When the Egyptian revolution took place, they said, we don't want any Sharia in Egypt, we want democracy. Ikhwan Muslimin said that. We don't want Sharia, we want democracy. Western style democracy. That's what they declared. We want Western style democracy in Egypt, not Sharia. They should stop calling themselves Ikhwan Muslimin because they are Ikhwan Shayateen. Why? Because they believe in democracy instead of Islam. That seems to be the last question. I would like to thank the brothers and sisters who made the dars a possibility. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.